Hi everyone. So today you are going to be doing some practice on what we learned yesterday. So what I'm going to do is, you're really going to do this by yourself, but I'm going to do a few problems with you so you kind of get the idea. So on this first page, I'm going to do 1A and 1C, and then 2A, and then you'll do the right side. So you'll do 1B, 1D, and 2B. I just want to give you a quick little example so you could follow it as you go along. And once again, if you have any questions, you could always just message me, okay? So based off what we did yesterday, we're just going to continue doing the same thing. So we're going to try and graph some movement here, but now it tells us how much we're moving over how much time. So I'm just going to kind of do it with you so you guys get more of an example. Okay, before we do anything, I'm just going to read it and we're going to talk about a few things. So in 1A, you are starting 4 meters from the motion detector, and you immediately walk away from it at 1 meter per second. So anytime you see m/s, this means meter per second. Okay, and if you see 1 meter per second, all this means is that you are moving 1 meter every 1 second. Okay, so we're going to try and graph this. So the first thing we know is that we are starting 4 meters from the motion detector. So I'm going to draw my dot at 4 because we're 4 meters away. The second thing I need to realize here is that I am walking away. Okay, so remember, when we walk away, our graph is up, and when we walk toward, my graph goes down. Okay, so I know that my graph is going to be moving upward, and it is telling me that, I'm going to highlight this, we are moving 1 meter every 1 second. So at 0 seconds, because we started at 4, so I drew a dot at 4. Then I move over to 1 second. And remember, if I went over 1 second, I went up 1 meter because I went 1 meter per 1 second. And then the same thing, I go to the next 2 seconds and I go up another meter. And then 3 seconds and I go up another meter. 4 seconds, 1 more meter, and 5 seconds up another meter. And then I'm just going to connect my lines. Okay, so that's what it means when we have m/s. Okay, so that one was a little bit of an easy one, so that's why I wanted to show you C so we could talk about it. Okay, but anytime you see m/s, it means meter per second. Okay, all right, so C, we're going to read it first and then we'll talk about it. You start 8 meters from the motion detector. Okay, so we know that we're starting 8 meters from the motion detector, so go ahead and draw a dot on 8 meters. We could even highlight that because we think that's important, okay? We read next, and we immediately walk towards it at 3 meters per second for 2 seconds, okay? So what this is saying, I'm going to highlight it because that's important. A walk away, or walk towards, sorry. So we know if we're walking towards, our graph's going down first, okay? And it's moving at 3 meters for 2 seconds. So all that means, I'm going to write it over here, is every 1 second we moved 3 meters. And this is happening, and it's happening for 2 seconds. Okay, so if we move 1 meter, or if we move 3 meters per second in 2 seconds, right, we would have moved 6 meters. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at, we started at 0, right, at 8 meters away. So we walked for one second, we walked 3 meters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to 1, and I'm going to go down 3 meters. So that would be here, because we went from 8 meters, and then we walked 1, 2, 3, because we were walking towards it, okay? But it says 2 seconds, so we have to do that again. So we went down 3 meters again at 2 seconds. So now that part's done because we only walked for, it only said for 2 seconds there. okay? Now, it says let me highlight. We stand still for 2 seconds, okay? Meaning we didn't go anywhere. So for 2 seconds, I am still at 2 meters. So I'm drawing my 2 dots there, okay? Then, I'm going to go back to my highlighter. We walked towards it again at 1 meter per second. So once again, I'm walking towards it. So my graph is still going down. And I went 1 meter closer to the sensor per second. Okay, so this is what my graph would look like. And then you're just going to connect the lines. So your graph needs to look just like that. Okay, so take it one by one. Notice, I did this first. I was standing 8 meters away. Then I realized with this highlight that my graph is going to go down. When you're looking at this part here, just think, if I'm moving 3 meters per second, in 1 second I have to go down 3. But then we had to do it again because it was 2 seconds. Okay, so you're going to do the same type of idea over here. Just break it down. I will give you a hint that this is going to go up. Okay? So that's how you'll do those top. Now, I did say we would do 2A together, so we're going to try and talk through this. Okay? So now what you're going to do is you're going to kind of write a story that goes along with the graph that you see. So first thing I see is that my graph started at 8 meters. So you can write, you start 8 meters from the sensor. So that's the first piece of information we know. Okay? Then we are walking, my graph is going down. So that means we are walking, you walk toward, right? Because we're going down, we're getting closer to the sensor. You walk toward the sensor. Now, we have to find how much we are going down at each second. So at each second, I drew a point on my graph. So notice, this is 1 second, I drew a point. 2 seconds, I drew a point. 3 seconds, I drew a point. 4 seconds, I drew a point. Now, we have to decide how many meters did we walk per each of those seconds, right? So if I go down, 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 I hit this point, right? So I went 2 meters per second. And again here. And again here. And again here. So this means you are walking toward the sensor at 2 meters per 1 second. Okay? Or you can write it 2m/1s. Okay? That means the same thing. So you are walking 2 meters every second. So you're going to do the same thing here at B, but this is different because look, you have a straight horizontal line, which means something. So be careful there. Okay? All right. Flip over. We're using, I'm going to do maybe 2 more with you and then explain one of them. Okay? So, for C, it's the same type of idea. You're going to try and write a story for what that looks like, okay? Now, this one looks a different. It may be a little bit more difficult, so I really want you to think here, right? At one point, we're walking towards. At one point, we're walking away, okay? Make sure you realize that every second, how much are you moving, okay? And over how long, right? We see an increase up until 3 seconds. Then something else happens. Okay, so all these little pieces of information you need to add in. Where did you start? Okay. Toward or away? These are the things you have to ask yourself. How many meters per second? And for how long? Okay, then maybe, did you change direction? And so on. Okay, so those are the things you need to ask yourself for C and D. All right, now I'm going to do number 3 with you and then explain 6, and then you're going to try everything else on your own. Okay, so for this one, it gives us a story, and now we're going to go ahead and try and graph it. Okay, so this says sketch a distance graph for a person that stands 9 meters away and walks toward the detector at a very slow, constant rate. So the first thing I know is that I'm starting 9 meters away. Okay. Now, we know that if it's a constant rate and we're moving kind of slow, it's not going to look like this, right? Because that would mean we're running. So you're just going to kind of guesstimate, and maybe you're walking like so. Okay, that would be a straight line, obviously. Okay, a little hard to draw. But it would look something like that. Okay, those two are easy. 3 and 4 are easy. So you're going to try 4, but that one looks a little different. And then once you do 4, you're going to explain why they are different. Okay? And then lastly, number 6. Okay? This one is different, but I don't think you will have a hard time. I'm going to explain how you would do this one. So over here to the right, okay, you are going to make up a story. So what this story can look like is if maybe you were on a bike or you were running, okay? But what I want you to do is at each change of direction, you're going to put a number, okay? So every time I see something changing, I'm putting a number, okay? So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you need to make sure you're writing small here because you don't have much room, okay? And for each one of these numbers that I put here, you have to write what is happening, okay? Same thing. I'm going to label down here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're just going to make this easy on ourselves and keep it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? And what one example would be, okay, whether you chose to run, to bike, whatever it may be, okay? You're starting at your home. This is home. No longer a sensor, okay? So on example 1 here, we see a sharp increase, okay? And what I could say here is I ran 3 feet per 1 second, okay, away from home. And then number 2, we could also do, you could see a flat horizontal line, which means you stood still. So maybe at number 2, you can say, I stood still, or let's say, I make it more realistic. I took a break and stood still for, let's see, we stood there for 1 second and we were 3 feet away from home. Okay, so you're going to continue the story on with 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remember, every time the graph goes up, you went away, and every time the graph goes down, you went towards. Okay, and this time we're using home instead of a sensor. Okay, you're trying to make this as realistic as possible. All right, and then these, same thing, you're going to tell a story, tell a story, tell a story, tell a story. And then same thing, you're going to draw a graph, tell a story, and draw a graph. Okay, if you have any questions, if you're in class with Miss Figmic, you may ask her, or if you are in my period 1, you could try and ask the sub, or you could always message me. Okay, I am feeling a little bit better, so I will have my phone ready to answer questions if you need. Remember, you have my remind, so just text me. Okay, have a good day.